Can you tell the difference between these two things? No? Yeah, most people probably couldn't, but that's because they're essentially the same exact thing. Now, one is the Meteor FR9, which is an Israeli photo recon version of the F8, and the other one is the Meteor F8. These things have the same exact stats in War Thunder, and are, in effect, the same exact plane, with the exception of some aesthetic differences, which really sucks, and is kind of the point of this video. These two planes have the same exact stats on their stat card, they have the same exact armament, they have the same exact secondary ordnance. Essentially, everything is the same, with the exception of the FR9 having some very small aesthetic differences, at least in War Thunder's case, with having some photo recon equipment mounted in the nose of the vehicle. That's pretty much it. And the thing is too, you're not going to notice that when you're actually fighting an enemy plane. You're probably not even going to notice that when taking off from the runway and you look over at another FR9 or something like that. It's such a small difference that you probably won't even notice it. And that really sucks. Now, the thing is here, I'm not sure personally because I'm not a historian, I don't really know the stats exactly, but I can almost guarantee that the extra weight caused by the photo recon equipment in the front of this vehicle would have slowed it down. It must have, right? Because a lot of the time when it comes to photo recon, you have it where you remove the weapons, and in this case they did not remove the weapons, and typically, again, countries remove weapons so that they can offset the weight increase caused by the photography equipment, again, in the vehicle. But that's just not done here, yet we still have the same exact stats as with the F8. And bear in mind, that's not what this entire video is going to be about, the FR9 versus the F8, because that'd just be ridiculous. It's really about this entire topic in general. With that being said, again, going back to the FR9 versus the F8 real quick, these two vehicles do have some differences in real life. I'm sure there are some stats somewhere, something that says, hey, the FR9 weighs a tiny bit more, maybe it should have a slightly lower rate of climb. Maybe it should have a slightly worse turn time than the F8, but it's nowhere. And I personally feel that because there is no difference whatsoever, a vehicle like this should be a premium vehicle. It just makes no sense to me that it's just like, hey, do you want the F8 or do you want the F8 with a new skin? That's pretty much what it is. You already have the F8 in the Israeli Air Tech tree. What's the point of the FR9? I get it, it's a cool little piece of history, but functionally it is the same exact plane. And don't get me wrong here, I personally love the Meteor F8 and I guess, of course, the FR9 by extension, because in my opinion, it's a very good plane. It's not the fastest plane in the world, but it has a pretty damn good rate of climb, it has a pretty good turn time, it's got actually pretty good cannon, but more importantly, in my opinion, it's got a very nice amount of shells to go with its cannons, so you can keep on firing and shooting down enemy planes, which is one of the prerequisites I pretty much have for doing well in a match, because I'm not all that great of an aimer. But that being said, in my opinion, the FR9 is a perfectly good plane. But is it a boring plane? You bet your butt it is. It is just incredibly boring because we already have the FR9 in-game. It's called the F8. Functionally, it's the same exact plane, and if Gaijin made some effort, somewhere to be able to determine that, hey, maybe this thing weighs a little bit more, maybe you should have a slightly worse turn time, maybe you should have a slightly worse rate of climb, and because of that, maybe it's a slightly lower BR, I would be all for it, because at least it shows some level of difference between the two vehicles, and it also shows that Gaijin has put in a little bit of effort to determine, hey, maybe this vehicle is a bit different than the F8 that it was based on. But no, that has not been done. And in lieu of that, maybe make it a premium. And don't give us that BS where they're going to say, oh, well, it's going to cost about 5,000 more mission score per task in order to unlock it because it's a premium vehicle. That to me is lame. But I feel like at least if it was a premium vehicle, it would make some level of sense. But of course they're not going to do that. So essentially we have a reskinned F8 in game that's just called the FR9. And in my opinion, that's a damn shame. And the reason why it's a damn shame is because it committed the mortal sin of being boring, which is just not what you want from an event vehicle. Event vehicles are things that you dedicate specific time for in a game in order to obtain. And if you're being boring during an event, you are doing the event wrong. That's just how it is. Again, perfectly good vehicle in my opinion. I do quite well with it. I enjoy it quite a bit, but it's a boring vehicle, which is just a mortal sin for events. And this issue kind of goes through a lot of the more recent events as well, like the Fiat Furos, for example. I find that was a fun vehicle, but basically it was just a Fiat with an MLRS up top. I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong, and I feel like it actually did something a little bit unique, and I'm glad that they added it, but it wasn't an entirely new vehicle. Then, of course, with the upcoming event, at least during the recording of this video, and it kind of makes some level of sense being that it's a Legends of Victory, but it's just a T-3485. That's it. It's the T-3485 Partisan. Thankfully, the Partisan will be a premium vehicle, but they're giving us that BS where they're saying that it's going to cost 5,000 more mission score per task star in order to unlock it, which I kind of find stupid. It should just be a premium vehicle for being a premium vehicle's sake, if that makes any level of sense. This is a Legends of Victory event. This is that special give or take yearly event in which Gaijin dedicates a single vehicle for the purpose of celebrating VE Day, and they kind of give it away again during an event, which I find is very cool. But because it's a special yearly event, maybe just make it cost a little bit less in order to unlock. I mean, don't get me wrong, I actually find it to be pretty cool, and thankfully, again, it is a premium, and it also has some pretty cool decorations on it, which is a really nice feature, and I really do actually like how Gaijin is kind of adding new vehicles with decorations on them, so on and so forth. But all the vehicles that have these decorations, like flags, like camo nets, things of that nature, they're all essentially just premium variants of vehicles that are already in game, but they're like, hey, we have a cool camo net, and because of that, we're going to make you spend a substantial amount of money, which again, really kind of sucks. And I get it, Gaijin has already been extremely thorough when it comes to adding a lot of basic vehicles in War Thunder. However, there are still a lot that they can still add, which I am completely shocked that they have not. And because they have added so many of these regular vehicles in War Thunder, it gets really difficult to be able to say, well, here's a prototype we missed, we're going to make it into a premium, or we're going to make it into an event vehicle. At this point, they're adding essentially variants of vehicles in game, but the variants are essentially the same exact vehicle that it was based on. Again, like the FR9 versus the F8. Or arguably even worse with the Battle Pass, because you actually have to pay for the Battle Pass in order to get all the vehicles. You have the M46 Legionary in the French Ground Tech Tree, which granted I think it is a premium, but it's just the most bland copy paste I've ever seen. And if you look at the camouflage for it, the special camouflage that says Legionary on the side, it's like, what? Did they use Times New Roman font? It's like the most basic font ever. There's no artistic styling to it. It just looks like somebody took a regular font that you'd get for Microsoft Word and put it onto the side of the tank, and they're like, well, that's a decal, that's it. It just feels like Gaijin has been getting lazier, and again, I can understand there are maybe fewer new vehicles that they can add to War Thunder, but there are still so many vehicles that they can add to War Thunder. Like the Stug 4, for example. I am absolutely shocked that we do not have the Stug 4 in War Thunder. There are plenty of German vehicles out there, plenty of American, plenty of essentially World War II vehicles, plenty of early Cold War vehicles, especially when it comes to prototypes. There are so many prototypes when it comes to early Cold War vehicles that it's just absolutely shocking that we do not have more of them in War Thunder. And now, to Gaijin's credit, they did mention that there will be a Kurt Tank designed plane coming to War Thunder within one of the next few events, which would be really cool, but that could be any number of things, right? Like, that could just be like a new variant of an FW190, which would really suck, or it could be like the Polky 2, which would be amazing. I would love to see that. That's something I've always wanted in War Thunder. But vehicles like that are becoming, unfortunately, few and far between. You're essentially getting new variants of Tech Tree vehicles that are already in game with minor differences, and then a premium variant of regular Tech Tree vehicles, and that's pretty much it. Where's the ME262 HG1? Where's the, possibly at least, the HG2? Where are so many of these vehicles, like the Panzer Lux, for example? There are so many vehicles that were made, that were almost made, whatever the case may be, and they're just not in War Thunder. Maybe not almost made, but you get the idea. There are just so many great vehicles out there that are not in game, and yet we're being stuck with the FR9. We're being told, hey, have a good day. I hope you grind out for hours and hours every day in order to get the FR9, because that's a great vehicle, right? It's not even a premium. And then when you're given a premium, it's just a copy of the T-3485, or it's just an M46 with a really, really lame font on it, and they call that a decal. It just sucks, you know? It feels stupid to me. It just feels really dumb. I feel like Gaijin's really lost their way. Where are vehicles like the Object 292 in events? Like the T-72 M2 Moderna? Yeah, that's a variant, but it's a really, really cool variant. It's a really unique variant. It's got special ERA. It's got an autocannon. That's awesome. Or even something like the Losat. There are so many vehicles out there that Gaijin has added in the past, and a lot of them more so have been ground vehicles, but there have been some air vehicles as well that Gaijin has added, in which they've been really, really cool. They've been either totally brand new vehicles or unique variants of vehicles, and maybe me saying the Fiat Furos wasn't all that great was a little bit of an overstatement. I think it was a relatively unique vehicle, which I'm glad that they added, but again, to contrast that with all the trash that kind of surrounds it, like again, the M46 Legionnaire, which is just a tragedy in my opinion, you have it where Gaijin has just been adding so many reskins of vehicles already in game and giving them away either as premiums or just simply as as event vehicles like in the case of the FR9, which is just so stupid to me. And to me, that is the Lameification of events in War Thunder, and to an extent, also to battle passes. I know battle passes are not events, but you could argue that they are even worse than events because you are paying for them and you're not really getting nearly as much as you used to. I mean, I made a few videos on this in the past, but you used to be able to get 4 vehicles in the first few battle passes. Then they cut it to 3. Now they've cut it to basically 2.5, where you might be able to get a third vehicle, but that's just it. You know, it's a big might, because if you had already unlocked the vehicles that they're offering as the third vehicle, you'll just get a small amount of silver lions instead, and that really sucks. It's just like, why am I paying for battle pass when the first people who bought battle pass, you know, thankfully I was one of the first people who bought it. I've been paying for it since the first season of battle pass, but I also get that free GE from Gaijins. But you used to be able to get the Super Corsair as a free vehicle in battle pass, which is just absolutely crazy to me. The T10A was a battle pass vehicle. It's just, what do you get now? You get yourself the Shalef, you get yourself the M46 Legionnaire, which in my opinion is essentially Gaijin's equivalent of a war crime. It's just awful. It's awful. And I feel like so many of these new vehicles that we're getting, it's either like high tier vehicles when it comes to an update, it's either vehicles that are already in game when it comes to events, and when it comes to battle passes, it's essentially vehicles, but premium vehicles that are already in game. It's just premium variants of that. And so we're not really getting anything new. We're just getting iterations of what we already have in game. And I guess you could argue that, hey, you know what, especially after World War II, a lot of nations started buying vehicles from other countries because it was cheaper, and also those vehicles may have been better than what they could have produced at home. But still, there's so many vehicles out there that are just ripe for the taking. The Stug 4, the Me-262 HD1, the Nahuel from the Argentinians. There are so many vehicles out there. When it comes to the Century series from the early Cold War, when it comes to the Soviet analogs of those vehicles, there's just so many vehicles out there that Gaijin could add, and yet they're just giving us the Meteor FR9. It just all sucks. It's the Lameification of events. I get it, you know, like I play, like if I'm going to be playing War Thunder, I'm going to be playing War Thunder, but because of this, I've actually been playing a bit less, believe it or not. You know, I've been playing this game for like 12 or 13 years, maybe even more than that, and I've been playing less War Thunder because I've just been feeling like, hey, I'm getting the same exact thing over and over again. If you're going to be making monthly events, or even like events that are slightly more often than a month, like how Gaijin said would be the new event cycle, rather than giving us like events where you can get 3 vehicles at a time, then you better make them at least occasionally interesting, which honestly they are not for the most part. The FR9, the Fiat Furos, which is still a cool vehicle, but what's the practical use of it? You know, there are just so many vehicles out there where either they are cool but have no practical use for it and they're basically meme vehicles, or they're just straight up copies of already decent vehicles from the regular air tech tree or ground tech tree, sometimes naval, but they aren't even premiums, and it just becomes like, why are we doing this, Gaijin? Why are we doing this? And I feel like if people are like me, you know, again, I've been playing this game for over a decade, well over a decade now, people might consider to stop playing this game. And I know I personally have, like, my zeal for making War Thunder videos has gone down dramatically, and I feel like part of it is due to the just game itself. Why would I want to make videos about this game when it's just been meh over the last few years? It just feels like they've been spinning their wheels and maybe getting a little bit more modern with vehicles, but that's it. And that only comes with major updates. If you're going to be implementing a brand new event cycle, then you better do it with some interesting vehicles every now and again. And it feels like the only vehicles that we get are interesting are meme vehicles with no practical purpose in game, at least at this point. So that being said, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I know I kind of ranted. That's what most of these opinion videos are for me. I just rant on for a very long period of time. Hopefully I made some sense. Let me know what you guys think about what I said. Give me your thoughts about what you feel. I really actually do want to read them. But either way, thanks for watching. I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.